How's it going this week, everybody? This week I had Sky on the show, and she has witnessed some type of white humanoid creature on all fours. We've been down this road before. Very, very close encounter, so it was cool to get her take on it because she saw it clearly, and really good story. I'm glad she came on to share this story today. Also, just want to do a quick shout out to all the members that have been signing up. You guys really help keep things going around here. If you are interested in the membership, you can get early access to episodes before they come out, and you can get some unaired interviews that are over there. Also, this episode is sponsored by Smoky Mountain Squatch Coffee Company. You use code CTU at checkout, you can get a discount. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so this all kind of transpired on Halloween of last year, so it was 2020. And Halloween last year was also the full moon, it was the blue moon, and everybody was talking like it was going to be a magical, spooky experience. So me and two friends were like, well, we didn't really go trick-or-treating, we didn't really do anything, so let's do something. So Halloween was about to be over, it was almost midnight, and we just decided to go just visit a graveyard. So we all drove like 20 minutes out of the way, and we got to this graveyard that none of us have ever been to before. I should note, like, I have walked around graveyards before and like just read the tombstones and stuff, so that's what we were planning to do. We get in there, we go pretty far, and I want to say we're like close to the end, we're in the middle. There's a walkway that we park on. We turn off our headlights. It's pretty dark outside, so can't really see anything. And we're all looking at the moon. It's pretty full, and my friends kind of go ahead of me, and they leave me by the car, still in the pathway. And they decide that they're going to go over the tombstones and take pictures or whatever. And out of the corner of my eye, I see movement, and I know it's not my friends because they're not on the pathway. I can hear them talking on the other side of the graveyard. So I turn my whole body around and I'm like, okay, like what's going on? Is there other people that have the same idea as us? And it was like, I want to say like 15 feet in front of me. It wasn't super far to where I couldn't make out like features, but it was too far for me to be able to tell like exactly what it was. But there was this like white figure, and it was on all fours. There was no tail. There wasn't anything that where I was like, okay, it's a deer or it's a dog. It wasn't like that. So I thought it was a human, but I was like, why would a human be on all fours? And it was crossing from the left side of the graveyard and walking in a straight line to the right side. So I was like, that's weird. And I was just frozen in my tracks. Like, my heart was beating super fast. I didn't call out to my friends. I didn't do anything. And I was just like, I was really squinting. I was trying to see like, what is this? And I couldn't make out facial features or anything because the head was down. Whatever it was, its head was like looking at the ground as it was walking. So couldn't tell what it was. I don't think it saw me. It was super quiet too. So I don't think that it knew that I was watching it. And I just watched it walk to the other end, and that was that. So I was like, okay, that's really weird. I'm going to go get my friends. And I walked over to them and I whispered, I was like, guys, like, I just saw something really, really, really weird. And they believed me right away because I've had like weird experiences in the past. So they're like, yo, we should get out of here. And we just got in the car and left because whatever it was, I didn't want it to know that I saw it. So we just left.
You know, that's really interesting. You know, a lot of people write me about these white creatures. You know, they send me emails. Sometimes I get people on the show to talk about them. There's a couple different names for these and speculations as to what exactly they are. So you said it walked on all fours. Did it appear humanoid?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking because it was like walking like an animal would, but it looked more like a human. I just couldn't make out the face.
What were the what were the body proportions like? You know, the front arms and the back legs, were they longer than normal? Were they, you know, what anything discernible there?
Yeah, so that's why I think I could see it so well because it was super pale, so that's why it stood out because of how dark it was, but also it was super skinny and long. So it was big, like it was big enough for me to see even with that far away. So it was definitely something tall.
Interesting. Would you say so? It looked skinny. Did it look like emaciated?
Yeah, it was skinny, it was lean, it was hunched in a way, like it was kind of like walking hunched with its back kind of raised, like super, super skinny.
Interesting. You know, you're not the first person that's told me that you've seen one of these things. You know, I don't know what they are. I actually have way back in the day. I did an episode where these guys got a photo of one, and it's interesting. You know, you can see there. It was a couple consecutive photos they took, and it was there in one photo, and then it was gone in the next one. But it was like a white kind of creature that was like hunched over, or I can't remember exactly. I'll have to dig up that old photo. I know I got it somewhere around here, but you know, it's creepy. What do you think these things are? You know, where do you think they come from?
So I actually didn't know anything about skinwalk, or I didn't know anything about this creature until after I saw it. So I was in class and I asked a Native American friend. I was like, "Do you know anything about this?" I didn't even know she was a Native American until she like right away was like, "That's what that is." And she told me that it's a Navajo origins. That's what it is. That indigenous people, and it's a spirit that was originally Native American that was outcasted from their tribe for practicing like a dark magic or doing something evil. And I know there's different variations of this, but I think that that's kind of where this stems from. I guess that's really as much as I know about it because I didn't know anything until this happened.
One of the things that I also want to ask you about it is, you know, like we talked about before you came on the show, is that you didn't want to call it by its name, and there's a lot of that kind of weird, like hesitation with a lot of people I talk to. They don't want to talk about them. They don't want to say the name. And you know, I guess I want to ask you, why is that? You know, I some people say that things get worse. People that are actively experiencing stuff, and then there's, you know, yeah. I just give me your opinion and give me your take on that one.
Yeah, for sure. So I personally, I'm not afraid to say the word, but I just think that's because it's nothing that is a part of my culture, so I don't know enough about it to be afraid. But after this experience, I called up another Native American friend I had. He's actually Menominee, and he lives on a reservation. And his first words to me were, "Don't talk about it again. Don't say the words. Don't go back to that graveyard ever." Like straight up, that's what he told me. And he said that he sees those things all the time on the reservation, and so do his friends, and they just don't talk about it to each other. He's like, "I shouldn't even be talking about it to you." So just out of respect for him saying that, I just try not to say it. I obviously let it slip a couple times, but all my friends are like, "Don't say it, Sky." So just out of respect, I'm not going to say it because I have spoken to people that say that when they do talk about it, it's almost like they're attracting it. Like if you've ever seen the movie Beetlejuice, when they say his name, he comes. I feel like people think about it in that type of way, where like if you talk about things more, they come. Like the same way that people say don't watch a lot of scary movies because you'll attract spirits and things like that. I feel like it's that type of thing.
Yeah, you know, that's a really good take on that. You know, I was just talking with another guy earlier today about these creatures, and he thought he had or encountered one. And after we talked a little bit, we kind of think he might have actually encountered a Sasquatch, not one of these creatures. But he mentioned to me, you know, that he actually had worked with a lot of native guys, and there was one guy that was like actually opened up to him about it and was telling him everything about him, and it was really interesting to hear that and see that someone was so open about it. So that was a nice bit of information there. So I guess I want to ask you, you know, do you think these things are like a physical, biological thing, or do you think there's something else?
I've been thinking about that a lot because I mean, while I was there, it felt pretty physical. It felt pretty real, like almost like an animal. So I was like, well, this feels like something real, but I feel like it's one of those spiritual things where maybe it can take on different forms to show itself to you, or for whatever the case that it's going through. I feel like it's something more spiritual.
I'd have to agree with that. These creatures are, they're seen, but then there's not really a whole lot in the way of evidence outside of the occasional photo that someone snaps of them. So it makes me wonder what they are. And there's so many variations with them too, which also raises the question, what are people seeing? With Sasquatch and stuff, it's there's evidence, there's the vocalizations, there's all this stuff that points to this is a real biological entity that's wandering around in the forests. But when it comes to things like these creatures, it makes me wonder what's really going on there, if it's some type of supernatural kind of stuff or whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's that way because it's rooted in these traditions from so long that I don't think it's anything new or like a specific type of animal, or I feel like it originated a long time ago and it's been around for like hundreds of years.
Yeah, these things are freaky. I don't know what they are. I don't think I ever want to see one of these, that's for sure. I'd kill to see a Sasquatch, like that'd be the moment of my life right there, to see one of those things. Wouldn't want to be too close to one because it's definitely, that'd be a very powerful animal.
Yeah.
But rip you to shreds. But like from a distance, I'd love to see one, and be close enough though that I knew what I was looking at too, where I could get features and stuff out of it. So, do you think that they are like in specific locations, or do you think they're pretty much everywhere?
So I know that reservations are definitely hotspots for these types of creatures, just because there's already that energy there, and I just feel like those people are more susceptible to it because that's their origins. But I think that just being on Native American land, which my city is heavy on Native American land, like my city was known as the gathering place near the water for the Native Americans that were here before us. So I think that it definitely helps if you are on like Native American burial grounds or reservation or anything like that. But I feel like these type of occurrences, I feel like if you have an open mind, you're more susceptible to it regardless of where you are. I know that there's different regions where these things occur more. Like I've heard of the show, it's like called that Native American Creatures Ranch. I watched a little bit about that. So I know there's definitely areas where this is more of a thing, but I have read so many stories of people seeing this in almost every single state and even outside of the United States where I'm from.
Have you read the book that correlates?
I have not.
Okay. Dude, it's wild. I've listened to it. It was basically a bunch of scientists got sent to that ranch to like try and study the phenomenon. Some of the stuff that some of these like super like intelligent scientists and stuff were not like, couldn't figure it out, and basically eventually after trying for such a long period of time to get some type of tangible evidence, they were witnessing all of this unexplained phenomena, the lights and then these creatures and all kinds of crazy stuff, but they were just never able to get any discernible proof. And eventually they were just like, we can't explain it, we have no way to measure this. It's like, so they basically lost the funding in it, and then the ranch got sold, I think after that. But yeah, no, if you haven't read the book, you should definitely read the book. It's very, very interesting, and it goes into like all of the techniques and stuff the scientists were using trying to study it, and all the weird things that they experienced. Like with the whole cattle incident, where after the cattle were all like removed from the pen and they were all shoved into like this tiny little trailer somehow magically, and then when they came out, I think the metal fence was magnetized. It was one of the weird things that they found for some reason where the cattle were being held. So, there's just so much we don't know about this stuff, and it makes me wonder what exactly is fully going on. humans are new, I think, in the whole like world. So whenever we try and say like, oh, we know everything and this can't possibly be real, we have to keep in mind that like 60 years ago, we were still performing lobotomies. And then 200 years before that, we were telling people to drink whiskey as a medicine. So,
Yeah.
I think that we have a long way to go. Like industrialism is very new. And I think that we're just scratching the surface of like this modern world. Like 500 years from now, it won't even look the same. Like we can't even comprehend what our species will look like 500 years from now in terms of technology and knowledge and that kind of stuff. We'll probably have interstellar travel by that point or something along those lines. And who knows what other, sciences we'll figure out by then. There's just so much that we haven't, we're just scratching the surface. We're very new right now still, even though people think like, oh, we're crazy intelligent, we've come so far. We're just getting started. Like there's such a huge future for mankind in the technological space. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's interesting how you mentioned that even with scientists that went to this area and were actually actively studying it, they still left kind of confused. I think that's why this is such a myth and not like a real thing yet, because people aren't talking about it, people are refusing to, and when people are actively trying to find out about it, it's not explainable.
Yeah.
Well, so I think you're right. I think in the future, when we do have new technologies and when we are learning more about what came before us, I think there might be some breakthroughs.
I think so too. I always say, it's this line I like to say, imagine you took a bunch of Victorian era scientists to see the Northern Lights. They'd see it, they wouldn't know what it is, and they wouldn't have the equipment or the knowledge of the atmosphere to actually understand what's going on there. It didn't come until they created new technology, like years and years, I think it was like 100 years down the line, they had figured it out and learned something about the atmosphere, and then that's how we figured out what the Northern Lights were. So it's just really interesting to see how we're confused now, but maybe 500 years from now, we're going to know exactly what these things are and where they come from, and we might be totally wrong. Maybe they're not actually attributed to Native American culture. Maybe there's something else, maybe it's just speculating here. Maybe it's their interdimensional something, or, we don't know. That's the thing, is we just don't know. So who knows?
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely.
Alrighty. Well, we are getting to the end of our time slot here. I'd like to thank you for coming on, and I enjoyed talking with you and getting your story. And I know people are going to write in saying they've seen the same thing.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to hearing if anybody else has had any similar experiences, even in a graveyard, because I haven't read anything about anybody seeing anything in a graveyard. Have you?
In a graveyard? Let me think for a second. Done a lot of stuff. In the graveyard. I don't think so. Not this creature. People have seen what you've seen in other areas, but not in a graveyard. This is a first for that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm curious to know if there's somebody else out there.
That's all for tonight, everybody. Thanks again for stopping by, and remember, if you want to get some unaired interviews, head over to challengetheunknown.com and become a member. Thanks for listening.
If I were a few generations younger, who